The airport was bright, polished, and too full of strangers. Naomi hated it already. She stood near the arrivals lane with one hand over her belly and the other around the handle of a small suitcase that had seen better days. Her cream dress fit her softly, and from a distance she looked calm. Up close, the tension in her shoulders said otherwise. She had come for one reason only: to get the last signature she needed before leaving Seoul forever. She did not know the man she had once loved would be here. Across the terminal, Kang Min-ho moved through the crowd like a warning. People made space for him without understanding why. Security straightened. Staff lowered their eyes. He wore a dark coat, expensive and severe, and carried himself with the quiet authority of a man used to being obeyed. Seoul knew his name. The underworld feared his silence. The boardrooms bowed to his money. Today, he was there for his fiancée. At least, that was what everyone believed. By his side walked Yuna, elegant and smiling, with a diamond ring flashing beneath the lights. She said something softly, but Min-ho barely heard her. His attention had caught on a familiar shape near the cab. A woman, curvy, beautiful, tired. Naomi. He stopped so suddenly that Yuna nearly bumped into him. Min-ho, she asked. He did not answer. Naomi turned at the sound of her name. The world gave him no mercy. Her face was thinner than he remembered, her eyes darker with exhaustion, and one hand rested protectively over the curve of her stomach. Pregnant. Min-ho's breath caught. Naomi froze when she saw him. Shock crossed her face first, then pain, then something carefully blank, like she had already practiced surviving this moment. Yuna followed his stare. Her smile vanished. "Do you know her?" Yuna asked. Min-ho did not look away from Naomi. "Yes." The single word landed like a blade. Naomi's throat tightened. She should have left the moment she saw him, but the crowd had trapped her, and the old wound inside her had not healed enough to let her run. She had loved Kang Min-ho once with the kind of faith that made fools of women. Then he disappeared from her life like smoke, leaving behind silence, rumors, and a future she had been forced to build alone. Now he was here, with another woman beside him, and she was carrying his child. The thought hit her so hard she almost laughed. Min-ho saw the way her hand pressed against his stomach and understood before she said a word. His jaw tightened. His eyes sharpened. Every instinct in him turned violent, possessive, and desperate all at once. He had built his life on control. Naomi had just destroyed it by existing. A driver opened the car door for Yuna, but Min-ho did not move toward it. He moved toward Naomi. The space between them became electric, then dangerous. Naomi's breathing changed. She could feel him before he reached her, like the air itself had begun to bend around his presence. "Naomi," he said again, lower this time. She lifted her chin. "Kang Min-ho." He flinched, barely. No honorifics, no softness, just his full name, spoken like a wound. Yuna stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "You know this woman?" Naomi looked at Min-ho, not Yuna. "Apparently, we all know each other now." Min-ho did not like the sound of that. He liked even less the way Naomi's voice trembled beneath her anger. He looked at her belly again, and his hands curled into fists at his sides. "Whose child is that?" he asked. Naomi stared at him as if he had slapped her. The question should not have hurt. After everything, she should have been numb. But it did hurt, because a part of her had once believed he would be the one person in the world to ask gently. Instead, he sounded like a king demanding tribute. Her eyes flashed. "Not yours to ask about." Yuna crossed her arms. "Min-ho, why are you speaking to her like this?" He did not answer her. He could not take his eyes off Naomi. She looked ready to break, but she was standing straight anyway, and that strength made something ugly and devoted move inside him. He remembered another version of her, laughing in a sunlit kitchen, stealing his tie and daring him to chase her. He remembered the curve of her mouth, the way she had touched his face like he was something worth trusting. He had not deserved her then. He might not deserve her now. But seeing her pregnant and alone in that airport made one truth hit him with devastating force. He was not done with her. Not even close. A voice over the loudspeaker announced a delayed flight. Somewhere behind them, a child cried. Cars moved outside in a line of wet headlights. The world continued, rude and ordinary, while the center of Min-ho's universe split open in front of him. Naomi took a step back. "Don't," he said. "Don't what?" "Leave." Her eyes hardened. You don't get to tell me where to go. He did not argue, because she was right. He had lost that right long ago. But he also knew one thing with chilling certainty. Something had happened to her after he left, and whatever pain had shaped her face now, he wanted blood for it. Yuna's gaze moved between them. Min-ho, introduce me. Silence. Naomi's mouth curved into a small, bitter smile. Oh, so this is the fiancé. Yuna stiffened. And you are? Naomi looked at Min-ho, not Yuna. Someone he used to know. That answer should have been simple. Instead, it hit harder than a confession. Min-ho felt his pulse in his throat, the memory of Naomi in his arms, Naomi whispering his name in the dark, Naomi begging him not to disappear again, flashed through him like broken glass. He had disappeared. That was the truth. And now she was here, carrying what might be his child, looking at him like she had already buried him. A man in a gray suit passed too close, brushing Naomi's shoulder. She winced and stumbled back. Min-ho moved instantly, his hand catching her elbow before she could fall. His touch burned. Naomi tried to pull away, but he held on just long enough to steady her. You're shaking, he said. I'm fine. You're not. I said I'm fine. Their eyes met. There it was again, that unbearable pull, the kind that made the air too thin and the silence too loud. Min-ho's thumb flexed against her sleeve. Naomi looked down at his hand on her arm as if she could not decide whether to hate him for it or cling to it. Yuna saw everything. Her expression turned cold. Let go of her, Yuna said. Min-ho released Naomi at once, but the absence of his hand only made the loss sharper. I need to speak with you, he said. Naomi let out a slow breath. No, you need to go back to your fiancé. The words were clean, controlled, practiced. They hurt anyway. Min-ho's gaze dropped again to her stomach. How far along are you? Her hand returned to her belly, protective and instinctive. Far enough. His brows drew together. Far enough for what? For you to ask too late. Yuna's eyes widened slightly. Min-ho's jaw flexed. He wanted to ask 100 questions. He wanted to demand names, dates, explanations. He wanted to know who had touched her while he was gone, who had made her carry this alone, who had placed fear in her eyes. Instead, he said only, come with me. Naomi laughed softly. Absolutely not. The driver had opened Yuna's car door again, waiting. Yuna reached for Min-ho's arm. You are not leaving me here. He looked at her then, finally. It was the first time his fiancée had seen the full weight of his attention slipping away from her, and she did not like it. That much was clear. Go home, he said. Her face tightened. Excuse me. I'll call you. That woman is pregnant, Min-ho. His voice dropped. I can see that. Yuna stared at him in disbelief, then at Naomi. Understanding began to dawn, and with it came humiliation. She stepped back as if she had been struck. Naomi looked away first. She did not want to witness the fallout. She had enough bruises inside her already. But Min-ho was not looking at Yuna anymore. He was looking at Naomi like a man seeing the wreckage of his own life, and realizing the wreckage still mattered more than the throne he sat on. Tell me the truth, he said quietly. Naomi's eyes flickered. Why? Because I need to know. She shook her head. You don't need anything from me. He leaned in just enough to make her breath catch. Naomi. The way he said her name made the people around them feel farther away. Her heart stumbled. Yuna noticed that too. Before Naomi could answer, a commotion rippled through the arrivals area. 2 men in black suits stepped out of the crowd too fast, too tense. Min-ho's bodyguard shifted immediately, hand near his jacket. Min-ho noticed the change in atmosphere and turned, reading danger in a heartbeat. Then he heard it. A man's voice, sharp and ugly, calling Naomi's name. Her face went pale. No, she whispered. Min-ho's entire posture changed. The man pushing through the crowd was broad-shouldered, angry, and too familiar. His shirt was half untucked, his eyes bloodshot with something worse than alcohol. Naomi recoiled. Min-ho stepped forward, placing himself between them without hesitation. The man looked him up and down. And who are you supposed to be? The airport lights glinted off Min-ho's ring. His voice was calm enough to terrify. Someone you should already be afraid of. The man snorted. I'm talking to my woman. Naomi's face drained of color. Min-ho's eyes darkened. You're what? The man pointed at Naomi. She owes me. That was all it took. Min-ho moved like a blade. 2 bodyguards intercepted the man before he could get closer, hands locked to his arms. The stranger cursed and thrashed, shouting about money, promises, and rights. Naomi stood frozen, one hand pressed to her mouth, her body trembling now so hard she could barely hold herself upright. Min-ho turned back to her instantly. Did he hurt you? Naomi stayed at the floor. That answer was worse than words. Min-ho felt something in him go cold and ancient. The following minutes were a blur of motion. Security arrived. Voices rose. Yuna demanded answers. Min-ho ordered his men to separate the stranger and keep him out of sight. Naomi backed away from all of it, panic rising fast in her chest. She had not expected this, had not expected her past to collide with her present in front of the one man whose opinion still had the power to break her. Naomi, Min-ho said, slower now, trying not to frighten her. But fear was already there. Not of him, of everything, of the man shouting, of the unborn child she could not afford to protect alone, of the way Min-ho's face had gone still and merciless, of the possibility that he might save her and still walk away. She took a shaky step back. That was when he understood. She thought he would leave. The realization hit him like a wound. His voice softened, almost against his will. I'm not going anywhere. Naomi gave him a look that nearly shattered him. You already did once. Then she turned and walked out of the airport. Naomi left the airport with her spine straight and her heart in ruins. Kang Min-ho watched her go like a man losing the only thing that had ever made him feel human, and the jealousy that followed was immediate, ugly, and absolute. Naomi did not cry until she reached the taxi stand. Even then, she made the tears silent. She sat in the back seat with one hand over her belly and the other clenched in her lap, staring out at the city while rain streaked the glass. Seoul kept moving outside the window in lights and traffic and noise, but she felt peeled out of the world and left raw. The driver asked where she was going. She gave him the address in a voice that barely worked. By the time the taxi pulled away, she had already told herself 3 lies. That she was fine, that seeing Min-ho had meant nothing, that she could survive one more day without breaking. None of them lasted. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. Then again. Finally, she answered, ready to end the call the second she heard a stranger breathe. Naomi. Her breath caught. Min-ho's voice had not changed. It was still low, still controlled, still capable of making her body remember things her mind was desperate to forget. How did you get this number? She asked. Your friend gave it to me. Naomi shut her eyes. Of course she did. I need to see you. No, Naomi. You don't get to say my name like that and expect me to come running. A pause. When he spoke again, his voice was rougher. The man at the airport threatened you. He didn't threaten me. He just reminded me of my life. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Min-ho went quiet, then said, Tell me his name. No. Why? Because you're not my savior. I didn't say I was. His tone shifted just enough to make her spine tighten. But you still think you can handle this alone. I've had no choice. That ends now. The audacity of him almost made her laugh. Almost. Instead she looked at the rain sliding down the window and swallowed the ache in her throat. You have a fiancé, she said. I ended it. The words landed hard. Naomi went still. What? I ended it the moment I realized she wasn't who I needed to protect. That should not have mattered. It did. Too much. She pressed a hand to her mouth, furious with herself for the sudden warmth in her chest. That doesn't change anything, she said. It changes everything. No, it doesn't. It changes the part where you disappear and I let it happen. Her throat tightened. You already did. He said her name again, and there was something in the sound now that she had never heard from him before. Not command. Not patience. Regret. Deep, ruthless regret. Naomi stared out the window, blinking hard. I'm getting off this call, she said. No, he answered. You're listening. That made her angry enough to breathe again. I don't owe you anything. I know. The quiet in his voice unsettled her more than the force of it would have. Then he said, But I still owe you. By noon the next day, Naomi was forced to leave the apartment for a doctor's appointment. She chose a crowded route, hoping that would make her feel less vulnerable. But the city had other plans. Outside the clinic, a sleek black car idled too long at the curb. A man inside lowered his phone the moment he saw her. Naomi's stomach sank. She turned to go back in, but the clinic's glass doors opened and Min-ho stepped out as if he had been waiting on the other side of the wall all day. She stopped short. He looked composed in a dark coat and gloves, but his eyes went straight to her face, then to the slight curve of her belly beneath her dress, then to the black car at the curb. He noticed everything. Always. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Making sure you got here safely." "I didn't ask you to." "I know. You can't just follow me around." "I can." She stared at him. He looked back with complete seriousness. Naomi exhaled sharply. "You're impossible." His gaze softened by a fraction. "You look tired." She hated that he saw it. Hated more that it was true. The clinic doors opened again, and a man in a tailored gray suit stepped out speaking to the receptionist. He was handsome in an easy, polished way, the kind of man who smiled too often and knew how to use it. He saw Naomi and brightened. "Ah," he said. "You must be Ms. Naomi." Min-ho's face changed so fast it was almost invisible. The doctor extended a hand. "Dr. Choi, I'll be handling your prenatal care." Naomi shook his hand, still unsettled by Min-ho's sudden stillness. Dr. Choi smiled at her. "You're a little late, but I kept the schedule open." Then he glanced at Min-ho and, not recognizing the warning in the air, added, "And I assume you're the father." Naomi's stomach dropped. Min-ho went utterly silent. The doctor's smile faltered. Naomi could feel the danger before it happened. "Not now," she murmured. But it was too late. Min-ho's voice came out controlled, almost polite. "What did you just ask?" The doctor blinked. "I asked if you were the father." Naomi closed her eyes. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. It spread through the sidewalk like a storm front. Then Min-ho stepped closer, stopping only inches from the doctor. "I am the man standing here," he said softly, "and you will address her carefully." The doctor looked alarmed now. "Of course. I meant no offense." Naomi rubbed her temple. "Min-ho." He did not look away from the doctor. "Leave." The doctor swallowed. "Mr. Kang." "Now." The man fled. Naomi stared at Min-ho in disbelief. "You cannot do that every time someone speaks." His eyes returned to her, dark and frustrated. He should not have assumed anything. "You look like you wanted to burn the building down." "I considered it." Despite herself, she let out a small breath that almost became a laugh. His expression changed immediately. There, that tiny crack in her armor. It vanished almost at once, but he had seen it, and seeing it made something in him settle. The appointment itself was brief and mostly routine, though Naomi found it difficult to focus while Min-ho waited outside like a guard dog in a suit. When she came out, he was near the car, speaking into his phone in a voice too low to hear. She should have walked past him. Instead, she watched him. He turned, caught her looking, and ended the call immediately. "Was that necessary?" she asked. "Yes." "For the doctor?" "For the man outside." She frowned. "What man?" Min-ho's eyes cut toward the curb. Naomi followed his gaze and saw the same black car still parked there. This time, it was empty. A cold shiver moved through her. Min-ho crossed to her in 2 strides. "Get in the car." "What?" "Now, Naomi." She should have argued. Instead, she heard something in his voice she had not heard before. "Faye." The following seconds were all motion. Min-ho guided her into the car, his hand firm at the small of her back. 2 of his men moved to the surrounding vehicles. The driver locked the doors. Naomi turned to protest, but Min-ho was already on the phone again, speaking in clipped Korean that sounded like orders being buried in the ground. "Tell me what's happening," she said. He looked at her. "Someone has been asking questions about you." "Who?" "I don't know yet." Naomi's skin went cold. "Questions like what?" Min-ho's jaw tightened. "Where you live, who you've spoken to, how far along you are." Her breath caught. He saw the fear hit her and leaned in slightly, his voice lowering. "Listen to me. You are not going anywhere alone. You can't decide that. I can if someone is watching you." She went still. The truth of it made the air feel thin. He stared at her for a long beat, then added, "If I thought this was only about me, I would leave you alone." That was the first time he had sounded genuinely vulnerable. Naomi looked away before he could see the effect it had on her. That evening, he took her somewhere she did not expect. Not a hotel. Not his office. A quiet house on the edge of the city with a garden wall and warm lights in the windows. She stepped out of the car and stared at it. Where are we? My family house. Naomi turned to him in alarm. No, it's safer. I am not staying in your family house. You are if someone is following you. She folded her arms. That is manipulative. It is practical. That makes it worse. A faint smile touched his mouth. You used to like when I was practical. Her cheeks warmed despite her anger. She hated that he still knew where to place the knife. Inside, the house was quiet and old in the best way, with dark wood, pale linen, and the smell of tea. An older woman greeted Min-ho at the door with visible concern, then froze when she saw Naomi. Ah, the woman said carefully. Min-ho's aunt, he explained later, in a tone that suggested he knew exactly how much explaining he was about to do. Naomi wanted to disobey. Instead, she sat in the guest room and watched the rain begin against the window. Min-ho returned with tea. She did not take it at first. He set it down anyway. You do not have to stay here all night, he said. I know. But you will. Her eyes narrowed. You say that like you have already won. He looked at her for a long moment. I have not won anything. The honesty unsettled her more than arrogance would have. Later that night, the power went out. The house fell into soft darkness, lit only by emergency lamps in the hall. Naomi, already tense, stood in the doorway of the guest room and called into the silence. Min-ho. His answer came instantly. Stay where you are. That made her pulse jump. He appeared in the hallway a moment later, shirt sleeves rolled, phone in hand, expression unreadable. She saw the change in him immediately. The protective focus, the sharpened readiness. What happened? She asked. Someone cut the main line. Her stomach tightened. Is that normal? No. A loud crash sounded from the back of the house. Naomi flinched. Min-ho moved in front of her before she could think. The next minutes were chaos. His men rushed through the lower floor. Voices called in Korean. The aunt was escorted into a safer wing. Naomi's heart pounded hard enough to hurt as Min-ho guided her toward a side room and locked the door behind them. You knew this might happen, she whispered. Yes. Her eyes widened. And you brought me here anyway. He turned to her, furious now, but not at her. I brought you here because I would rather fight them in my own house than let them find you somewhere else. Naomi stared. Another crash echoed below. Min-ho checked the phone in his hand, then looked at her with a kind of deadly calm that made his stomach turn over. They found the wrong place, he said. What does that mean? It means they are not here for me. Her breath stalled. He stepped closer. They are here because of you. The words landed like ice water. Naomi's voice shook. I do not know anyone dangerous enough to do this. Min-ho's eyes stayed on hers. That is where you are wrong. Before she could ask what he meant, the door handle rattled once. Then again. Naomi stumbled back. Min-ho moved between her and the door, one hand already reaching for the weapon hidden at his side. His face had gone still in the way that only made him more frightening. The handle stopped. A voice came from the other side, low and mocking. Min-ho. Naomi went pale. She knew that voice. Min-ho did too, and his entire body seemed to harden around the sound. The voice continued, amused and venomous at once. Did you really think she could hide from us forever? Min-ho's hand tightened. Naomi whispered, Who is that? His answer came like thunder in a closed room. Someone who should be dead. The door shuddered as something struck it from the outside. Min-ho lifted his weapon. Outside, in the darkness of the house, the enemy laughed. Darkness swallowed the room. Naomi could not tell whether the sound she heard was the door hitting the wall or her own breath breaking in her throat. Something crashed to the floor. Min-ho cursed in the dark. A harsh burst of static snapped from somewhere behind them, then the sound of footsteps moving fast across wood. Naomi pressed herself against the wall, one hand over her mouth, the other over her belly. Min-ho, she whispered. I know. His voice was close, controlled, and far too calm for the violence tearing through the house. Another shape moved near the doorway. Naomi's pulse slammed hard enough to hurt. Then a flashlight beam cut through the dark, sweeping once across the broken doorframe, across Min-ho's face, and then straight toward her. She flinched. Min-ho moved in front of her instantly. "Don't look at it," he said. That made no sense until she heard the click of a weapon being raised. Her breath caught. The man who had entered did not speak at first. He only stood there in the wreckage, half-lit and silent, as if he had been waiting for this moment longer than anyone else in the room. Then he said, almost gently, "You should have listened when I told you to leave him." Naomi's stomach turned. She knew that voice. Not from the airport. From before. From a time she had tried to bury. "Naomi," Min-ho said, without looking back at her. "If I tell you to run, you run." Her throat tightened. "I am not leaving you." "Then don't freeze." Another step. The flashlight shifted again. And then the man in the doorway smiled. Not because he was relieved. Because he had found exactly what he came for. Naomi felt the truth of it before she understood it. This was not a break-in. This was a collection. And she was the thing he had come to collect. Naomi reached for the heavy glass lamp on the side table and hurled it straight at the flashlight beam. The room exploded into motion. The man jerked sideways with a curse as the lamp shattered against the wall, scattering shards across the floor. In the same instant, Naomi bolted for the hallway, one hand over her stomach, the other bracing herself against the wall as panic ripped through her chest. "Naomi!" Min-ho shouted. She heard him moving behind her, heard the sharp crack of another impact, heard the stranger swearing in the dark. Then another voice rose from deeper in the house, shouting for someone to cut her off. Her blood ran cold. This was not one man. It was a trap. Naomi pushed harder, lungs burning, the old wooden floor slipping beneath her feet. A hand shot out of the dark and caught her wrist. She screamed. Then the grip vanished just as fast, replaced by Min-ho's hand locking around hers. "Keep moving," he said. She glanced at him once and saw blood on his sleeve. That almost made her stop. "Don't," he said again, fiercer now. "Run." Ahead of them, the corridor split. Naomi barely had time to choose before a figure stepped into the far end of the hall. Tall. Still. Watching. The man lifted his head into the dim emergency light, and Naomi felt her body go numb. She knew him. Not because she had seen his face today. Because she had spent years trying to forget it. The stranger from the doorway smiled. "Hello, Naomi," he said. "You should have died before you found out." Min-ho stopped beside her. The air changed. Naomi turned slowly toward him, horror rising in her throat. "You know him?" Min-ho's jaw tightened. His silence was enough. The man in the hall smiled wider, satisfied now. "Tell her," he said. "Tell her who I am." Min-ho took one breath, then another, and Naomi knew, with sudden dread, that whatever came next would break the last piece of her life that was still standing. The enemy from the hole should finally identify after the reveal. Min-ho should choose Naomi publicly and permanently. He ends the old ties, cuts off the enemy's leverage, and removes Naomi from danger without asking her to beg for it. Naomi should not forgive him instantly. She should be guarded, angry, and emotionally exhausted, but she should also see that he is finally telling the truth with his actions, not just his words. The final emotional turn should be her deciding that survival does not have to mean being alone anymore. That gives the romance a stronger finish than a simple reconciliation. Himself and explain the connection in one sharp burst, not a long speech. He can reveal that Min-ho's brother was involved in the original betrayal, and Naomi was never just a bystander. She was used as leverage, then erased to keep the truth buried. Min-ho should not deny it at first. That silence makes the reveal hit harder. Naomi should realize that the distance, the disappearance, and the danger around her were all tied to a past crime bigger than their relationship. Then the emotional reveal lands. Min-ho did come back too late, but not because he stopped caring. He stayed away because he thought his absence would keep Naomi alive. That should hurt her, but it also explains his coldness and the way he keeps trying to protect her now. After the reveal, Min-ho should choose Naomi publicly and permanently. He ends the old ties, cuts off the enemy's leverage, and removes Naomi from danger without asking her to beg for it. Naomi should not forgive him instantly. She should be guarded, angry, and emotionally exhausted, but she should also see that he is finally telling the truth with his actions, not just his words. The hallway was silent for one terrible second. Then Min-ho moved. He stepped in front of Naomi so fast she barely saw the blur of his arm, the flash of metal, the sudden impact of bodies colliding in the dark. The man in the doorway surged forward, but Min-ho met him head-on, forcing him back into the shattered frame with a violence so controlled it looked almost calm. Naomi stood frozen for a breath, unable to tell where one shadow ended and the next began. The emergency light in the corridor flickered weakly, catching the stranger's face just long enough for her to see the smile still there. Not fear. Recognition. You should have stayed gone, the man said again, his voice low and full of poison. Both of you. Min-ho's jaw tightened. Naomi, go. She didn't move. I said go. That voice snapped something inside her. Not obedience. Not trust. Fear, maybe. But also anger. She had spent too many years being told to wait, to be quiet, to survive by shrinking herself. So instead of running, she grabbed the lamp again and slammed it into the man's shoulder before he could strike. He stumbled, cursing, and Min-ho used the opening without hesitation. The weapon in his hand flashed once. The stranger staggered back, one hand flying to his side, but even then he smiled through the pain. This changes nothing, he hissed. Your brother started this. You know he did. Naomi went still. Min-ho did not answer. That silence was answer enough. The man's eyes slid to Naomi, sharp and knowing. You really didn't tell her. Min-ho's face hardened. Leave. The stranger laughed. You think this ends tonight? She was always leverage. Always. Naomi's stomach turned cold. What are you talking about? Min-ho looked at her then, and for the first time since the airport, she saw it all at once in his face. The guilt, the fury, the grief he had buried so deep it had become part of his bones. My brother betrayed me, he said quietly. He was the one who sold out the family. He used your name to hide what he did. Naomi stared at him. Every word landed like a strike. You knew, she whispered. I knew enough to keep you away. You disappeared. I was trying to keep you alive. Her laugh came out broken, by leaving me to find my own way. Pain flashed in his eyes, but he did not turn from her. Yes, he said, and I hated myself for it every day. The man in the doorway made a soft sound, like he was enjoying the ruin of them. Naomi stepped back, her hand over her belly again, her breathing uneven. The room, the house, the whole night seemed to tilt around her. So that was it. The silence, the danger, the years. Not random, not fate. A lie built by blood. Min-ho took one step toward her, slower now, careful as glass. Naomi. She shook her head. Don't. His face tightened. I know you hate me. That's not what this is. I know. She looked at him then, really looked, and saw a man who had been carrying a war inside himself long before she came back into it. He was still dangerous, still controlled, still devastatingly hard to read. But he was here. He had not run. The stranger let out a bitter laugh and tried to lunge again, but Min-ho turned in time to stop him. The fight that followed was quick, brutal, and over before Naomi could fully process it. One of Min-ho's men burst in from the hole, and then another. The intruder was dragged back into the darkness, still shouting, still promising this was only the beginning. The house fell still again. Naomi and Min-ho stood in the ruined doorway, both breathing hard. She should have said something sharp, something defensive, something to keep the distance alive. Instead, all she could ask was any of it real? Min-ho turned to her, and the answer in his eyes was immediate. Yes. The simplicity of it broke her more than a speech ever could. Not because it fixed anything, because it didn't, because he still looked like a man who would bleed before he lied to her. Naomi swallowed hard, staring at the floor so he wouldn't see the tears she refused to let fall. Behind her, the baby kicked once, a small violent reminder that there was still life inside the wreckage. Min-ho noticed her hand tighten over her stomach. His expression shifted at once. Are you hate? No, Naomi. I said no. He stopped. For a moment they just looked at each other, everything they had lost standing between them like a third person in the room. Then Naomi lifted her chin. If you want to protect me, she said, voice shaking but steady enough to carry, you do it by telling me the truth next time. Min-ho's eyes darkened. There won't be a next time. She gave him a tired, almost humorless look. You always say things like that. His mouth twitched, but it didn't become a smile. Outside, sirens began to rise in the distance. Min-ho looked toward the window, then back at her. You're not staying here tonight. Naomi folded her arms, instinctively defensive again even through the fear. And where exactly am I going? With me. I thought you knew better than to order me around. I do. Then stop doing it. He held her gaze for a long second, then said, Come with me, Naomi. Not because I'm asking, because I can't leave you where they can reach you. That might have been the most honest thing he had said all night. Naomi looked at the broken doorway, the blood on the floor, the dark hole beyond it. Then she looked at Min-ho. He was still waiting. Not demanding. Waiting. She hated that it mattered. She hated it more that it did. Finally, she reached for her suitcase. Fine, she said. But understand this. I am not forgiving you tonight. Min-ho's shoulders loosened by a fraction. I wouldn't ask you to. The word should have been enough to make her cry again. Instead, they made her angrier. Because he sounded sincere. Because sincerity was harder to defend against than lies. As they moved toward the door, Naomi paused once and looked back at the ruined room. Her life had cracked open in the space of a few hours. The man she had lost was not lost after all. The threat she thought belonged to the present was tied to a past she had never been allowed to understand. And now she was stepping into the dark with the one person who had hurt her most and protected her best. The night had not ended. It had only changed shape. If you want part 2, like, share, and subscribe, because Naomi's past is finally catching up to her, and the truth is about to cost everyone everything.